Well, good morning and welcome to the Real Estate Heavyweights podcast. And this is going to be our final look at the flipping process. This is Real Estate Heavyweights University. We've been diving deep into flipping. We've talked about financing, finding the flip, getting off to a really good start, all these aspects. So please go back and check out some of those episodes. Let us know if you have any questions. We're going to be going back into those topics at some point and really clarifying. So if there's anything that we didn't touch on or you want us to explain a little bit better, we are for sure open to that. And then we're about to start getting into interviewing some other professionals in the Dallas area, nationwide, and picking their brain and trying to get the best answers for you when it comes to investing, how they do their business, how the tips and tricks that they have to share for us and for you. So definitely keep tuned for that. Today, I am with my friend and partner and my mentor with flipping. He actually sold me the house I'm working on right now at my flip over on Mapleton. If you follow me on Instagram, the Dallas real estate guy, I've been showing the whole process. And so Tavis Westbrook is his name. He's a superhero in the investing world. He does the commercial, he flips, he wholesales, he's got long-term, midterm. He's got a lot of it going on. So Tavis, how are you doing today?
Good morning, Ashton. I'm doing well. I'm ready to conquer this week. So I'm excited,
Yes.
man. It's Thanksgiving week. We got food on our brain. We got entertainment on our brain. We got finishing projects on our brain and new acquisitions as well that are on my brain. So I'm fantastic.
Yeah. Well, when you're called the real estate heavyweights, it means we know a lot about real estate. It also means that we probably could play for the Dallas Cowboys. If things go really poorly, we could probably fill in on some form of the line for the Cowboys and at least hold it down for a few minutes while someone was getting some tape on their ankle or something. Because yes, we are both large dudes. I'm 6'3", 275, 280, something like that. Tavis is a large dude. I don't know. Did you ever play football? Was that your thing?
Well, I say not professionally, not organized. Unfortunately, yeah, no, that was I actually really was excited to play growing up, but unfortunately, we were not in a financial household to afford to do it, so never really got to do it. Unfortunately, but I played organized baseball, but
yeah. And me too. I actually grew up playing baseball, but yeah, I actually grew a little bit later. And of course, everybody wants to know if you play football. I've met a professional football player. Actually, was at a wedding of a friend's whose brother played, Andrew Whitworth, and that is when you see a real professional football player, I look nothing like him. I mean, he's like 6'7", 330. He could pick up the back of my car just to let me change a tire quickly. I was like, he's enormous, and I always think it's funny when people, oh, you play football? Like, no, but I do know a guy that does. And he looks like he could destroy anyone. So
yeah.
Anyway. So we're finishing up the flipping university this time. And it's nice because I'm actually going through this phase right now. The final few weeks, trying to just finish everything up, get it on the market. Where we left it off last time was just kind of in the middle, the drudging through, the sequencing everybody, getting everybody in there lined up. That way no one's doubling back. You're not having to pay extra, but you're going to do that for a while. You're going to kind of get into that gear for 2-3 months, whatever it is. You're just going to be knocking stuff out, and then you're going to finish this, and the next guy's going to come in. You're going to do your rough in, and they're going to do some start doing some finish out work, and then you're going to, get to where sheetrock and paint's done. You get your cabinets in. Now you can start trimming things out. All that stuff will really, start to happen for you. And then you get towards the end and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you're like, okay, now what? And this is where being there a lot pays off, because you're just constantly finding little things, doing punch list, making list for yourself, your main guy or whoever it is. Hey, we got to do this. We got to do that. We got to do that. And so, Tavis, why don't you talk about a couple of things that always pop up towards the last couple of weeks that, you have to really pay attention to in order to finish well, to get it on the market and kind of move on?
Yeah, I think one of the craziest things that you've got to kind of play Tetris with and organize, and we talked about this a lot last week, and just sequencing and things like that. But you know, punch items are the death of most people. And you
Hmm.
defined punch last week, just kind of being those loose ends that come up on every project, whether it's a remodel, it's a new build, any kind of project has got kind of loose ends that, either it's something that was overlooked in the beginning, or it's a problem that has occurred um, due to something else or something not fitting correctly. For instance, you're dealing with that on the microwave, and
Yep.
it was a step that was missed, unfortunately. And rather than the cabinet builder to tell you, hey, I can't make this cabinet until I get these specs from you, he went ahead and built it based on what he thought was going to work. And unfortunately, it's not just a little fix, it's a big fix, because he's off on his height. And when he's off on his height, you've got, cabinet doors above it. And, we did these cool, um, bacon sheet slots, above the microwave.
Hmm.
And that's all going to move now. And so now, because of that, and you've got an enamel, finish on these cabinets, now you're waiting on the cabinet guy. The house is done. I mean, I think that's really your biggest headache right now is everything's done,
Hmm.
but you can't stick the microwave in the hole because it doesn't fit, and the brackets are in there, but it's not done. And it's like, the question mark you have is, do I go ahead and take a picture with the microwave not in there and then just let it ride? Because that's the only thing, which
Yep.
may be what you have to do if you don't hear back from the cabinet guy today. Um,
Yeah.
and at the other side of it is like, okay, now you're going to get raw cabinets in there. Now you got to coordinate the painter getting back. It's a holiday week. And, now you're going to burn a whole week for this little mistake, And so
Yep.
it's things like that. It's the multi-sequence things that take you back a couple stages, or it's a problem that needs to be fixed. But then, like, let's say right now, we talked a little bit about the electrician last week and some of those little minor details. Well, they, to move a wire, they just go over and cut sheetrock. Plumbers too. Like the plumbers over at another buddy of mine's, that we're helping him with a project. Like drywall's done, paint's done, waiting on the cabinets to come in, and he sends me a picture because the water line for the fridge never got moved. And he sends me a picture, and they just butchered the sheetrock to carry the water line over. They took the easy
Wow.
route versus getting in the attic and pulling it down or whatever. And it's like, oh god,
Mm.
it can be
Yeah.
fixed. It's fine, but it's just, it's like it's a 3-stage process now to get the drywall guy, get the painter back, and
Hmm.
then do you do it now? And that guy makes another trip, and then he makes another trip on the final, or can you put the cabinets in and just work around it, right? So it's
Yeah.
those things that just drive you nuts. And um I think anybody that's done a few flips can probably attest to the same frustration. Mark
Yeah.
Fowler, Intense Properties, he wants to be a guest on the show here, and he's coming up, and he's definitely a veteran in the game. And it'll be interesting kind of hear his side. He does things a little differently, but he's been very successful in the game many years. And I'd like to hear his point of view, but I'm sure there's a lot of similarities to these you know
Yeah.
end game
Well, I
issues that
think,
come up.
yeah, I've had this conversation before, oddly, with I have several friends that are musicians and artists, and I think there is some parallels there. And I've always been really curious when someone is artistic. I ask them, how do you know when it's done? Because when you're doing something artistic, it's not this finite, hey, I solved the math problem, I pressed enter, I got the answer, and I send it in. There's always something else you could tinker with. But at some point, you back up and you just say, it's good enough. And not in really a bad way, but you have to be okay with just saying, it's good. because if you don't, you're just constantly going to be, well, actually, let's caulk this, and let's paint this. Let me get that landscape. Let's do this, and now I need, well, let's mow before the pictures. It's just whatever it is. I mean, you want to have a baseline of it being finished, because you don't want people to walk in the house and two or three things you're having to have them overlook of like, okay, well, we're bringing someone in. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. But there is a level of just saying, it's fine. It's good. Don't worry about it. And I remember over at Polk when I was trying to get stuff ready, I mean, I was spending hours there, and in a way, I'm sure it was fine, but I mean, just hours on my knees and hands in the bathroom trying to clean grout and trying to get a little bit of a paint smudge off of here and trying to straighten this up, and all of these things. And at some point you're like, okay, the picture people are showing up tomorrow at 10, we're listing it the next day, and we're going for it. And I'm always curious when people are saying like, okay, yeah, we're done, just walk away, because I could drive myself nuts with that part.
I think the key factor to remember is like if there's things that are going to make a buyer walk in or a buyer's agent walk in and scratch their head or gives them the option, for instance, like I learned a long time ago, don't give these people options because they will take it. So like there's a lot of competition out there that kind of see what's going on in the market. Inventory starts to pick up, sales start going down, things like that. People panic and they're like, well, let me get it on MLS. Let me just get it out there. We're not done with it. We're still working on it. But when you do that, then you open up a can of worms because now the buyers and the buyer's agent are like, oh, you mean I can pick colors, I can pick tile, I can pick floors, I can do this, I can do that. And they have no idea the sequence. They have no idea like how this works. And it's going to create a hell of a lot more headache. And it's also going to create budget issues, that come up with that. And there's not a lot to really hold that buyer's feet to the fire. I mean, you can ask for non-refundable deposits. I mean, builders go through this and it's a pain. Like I've learned it and I'm like, no way, so to me, it's like, can I get this thing all the way done where the house is obviously done? Like in your case, the last thing is the microwave. So worst case scenario, you let it ride, you clean it up, stick the microwave in in a closet in the meantime, take pictures, then pull it out, leave it in the kitchen. It's obvious you're working on it. It's obvious that, if a buyer comes in, wants to buy the house and the cabinets are raw above the microwave, it's a punch item. It's going to be fixed, right? Like that's pretty obvious to explain. It's not like somebody walking in, scratching their head going, what's going on here? So
Right.
I think that's the key, is to try to think through, how the reactions of the buyers and the agents are gonna participate in this space, and are they gonna be confused or wonder if something is half-assed or not done right? So,
Yeah.
but
Well, to that end too, I know we've had a conversation, and you're basically now you're putting a bow on it, and you're trying to polish it up and make it look as great as possible. And I feel like we've done that. If you want to think about it from the beginning, we've always said, think with the end in mind. Who's your buyer? And specifically with Mapleton, I think we did a great job with that. Almost, I don't know if it was intentionally or not, but I think it was intentionally. Like the office that we put up front, the more I think about it, I think that office up front might be the thing that sets that house apart, because in a 1960s house in an older part of town, the dedicated office is rare. And especially in that size of house, a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, under 2,000, around 2,000 square feet. It's just something that doesn't really exist in those layouts. And so to have that as a marketing tool in the modern home where people work from home so much, I think that could really, really help us stand out. Plus we have, I just think we did a great job with design and layout and all that. But all that being said, is you do a wonderful job of keeping track of all of your expenses and all of your line items that you've done to that house throughout. So at the end, you can present this package to whoever's interested and say, look, I'm going to show you all my cards. This is what we did. This is how much it cost. And, if there's any, like, let's say foundation warranties or anything, like, you want to make sure you're answering all their questions that they're going to have. So there's just zero friction between them, wanting to buy that house and actually putting a deposit down and putting an offer in. So why don't you talk a little bit about your process and all the things that you you really make sure that you present to another agent or a buyer that's interested in a house that you flipped?
So I think it's twofold. When you look at the back end or the administrative side of this business, and it's probably one of the biggest things that I hate, because I'm not a homebody, and I end up kind of locking myself in the office, at the desk actually right behind me, for several hours on end, typically on a Thursday or a Friday, um, during a project or multiple projects, doing data entry, right? Data input. And when we were much busier, back in the day, when I owned Superior Acquisitions, we would be running sometimes simultaneously 10 projects. So in that case, I did have somebody coming in once a week, and they would come in on Thursdays and would pay them for their time. And it would be a 2 to 4 hour project of data entry, basically, and cutting checks, for Friday, right? And so we created this routine years ago, because I go back to like 2009 through 2011. I remember being chaotic, and actually it was Tabitha, my wife, that came in 2011. Was like, all right, this is a mess. You need to clean this up. And it was old school. Had the business checkbook. Might have had two of them or three of them for different accounts. They were sitting in my truck all the time,
Yep.
and the
Yep.
contractor would need to get paid, and I'd be on the job site, and they go, "Hey, do you have a check for me? Hey, do you have a check for me?" And half the time they would not have an invoice, right? And they would tell me how much, and I would write the check, and I would, hopefully
Hmm.
put the information in the little memo sheet next to the checkbook, and I would just go on. And then to be the end of the month, and I'm like, I think we're running out of money. How much is in the account? How much have I written
Yep.
out? Hold on, let me go and start inputting this, and it would be like this mad race to start inputting information in. And the 11th, 12th hour, you're getting ready to sell the house, and I'm like, I have no idea what I really spent, and I don't know what's left in the
Hmm.
budget. And 9 times out of 10, I would do the budget. I'm like, God, no, this is not good. I'm over budget, or I don't have the money to pay this guy. And so now I'm having to put more money in to fund it, because I didn't track it, and I'm upside down, and I'm like, oh crap.
Yep.
We talked about this a few days ago, I guess. Was like, hey, Astor, what do you have left on this project? What are your big expenses left over that need to be paid? And you were like, I think I'm pretty good. I think I've paid pretty much all of these loose ends. I'm like,
Yeah,
what
you're
about
basically
cabinets?
describing how I run my job. It's like, yeah,
And you're
this is
like,
me. Like I've got two
yeah,
or three checkbooks in the truck. I show up, they want to check. I'm like, hey,
yep,
okay, how much? Well, it was a little bit more expensive. Okay, well here you go. It's like that is how I've been running it. I mean, I start
yeah,
out well. I update spreadsheets and you know, but yeah, now I was telling you like right now I'm kind of in just survival mode. Like, let's just get this going. Let's here you
right,
go. Yeah, let me put this on a credit card. Yep, let's go. Here's a check. Do you take Venmo? Sure. I've paid Venmo, Zelle,
yep.
checks, credit card. I mean, I have it spread out just to get done. And I've changed vendors so many times over this project that's been an issue,
Yeah.
and getting invoices and all that. So man, you're
Well,
you're painting the picture of how I do it right now.
well, and I'll tell you, because I've taught classes for many years to agents, and one of the things that we would teach an agent that's representing a buyer is, hey, ask for the information, ask for receipts, ask for not necessarily specific paper receipts, but ask for a breakdown of who they've paid out, or the project spreadsheet. And I can say that because now I've perfected our back end to be able to provide that, and a lot of times you get pushback from the investor, like, oh, nah, I can't do that. And people freak out, like, what do you mean you can't do that? Well, it's exactly what you're saying. It's not it's not a priority. It's not a system that you have in place. So therefore, you trying to backtrack all of the administrative side to track all of your expenditures, on this specific project, and go, okay, this belongs here, and this is what I spent here, and this is what I spent here, is very difficult. So it's a hell of
Hmm.
a lot harder when you're looking at in your project. Mapleton's been a 12-month project for you now to go back and accumulate 12 months worth of data to input and put together and track is extremely difficult. It's much easier to look at your business account and go, what went in, what went out, what's the total? Okay,
Yeah.
it was associated. I had this project. This is where all this expense goes to. What's the grand
Yeah.
total? What's my balance sheet? Right. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the systems that we put in place was, like I said, go back to when Tabitha kind of jumped in and took over. Is it was first getting the trades on a guideline to say, get me your invoice by 5 o'clock on Thursday, and we'll pay you Friday. If not, then I'll pay you the following Friday. You know, and for the most part, 95% of my people are on board with that. Now, if I get a new trade or a one-off
Mm-hmm.
guy or somebody that doesn't manage their money really well, I know that he may want to check after he does the work on the weekend, and I'm going to have to cut him a check, on Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
But for the most part, everybody's trained this way. Everybody's on board. There's I know they're going to do the work. They know I'm going to get them paid. There's this understanding. But
They smell blood
back
in
when
the
I
water
had,
with me because I just look too nice. They look at me and they're like, call up, hey, do you mind sending me another $300? Hey, do you I don't have time to go to Home Depot. Can you go grab this for me and bring it to the job? And
oh man,
man, as far as marriage advice, I've always given this marriage advice to anyone that, oh, you're about to get married. Okay, here you go. Don't ever do anything one day you're not prepared to do the rest of your life. Because if you do something one day, if you do something one time, now you have established with that person, like you're cool with it. And with these trades, like you run to Home Depot for them one time to try to be nice and try to keep them going, or you pay them early, or this long story why all of a sudden you got to pay their cousin through Zelle and all this stuff. It's like, you do that, and now that's the system. And
yeah.
then next time you don't do it, well, you're a big jerk. It's like, but you have these great boundaries with them. And so for sure, that is something from the beginning of next time, that's going to be, give me the invoice, I'll pay on Friday. Really segmenting out. The other big thing for me, I know you don't do, is going and buying in materials and bringing it to the job site, with rare exception. You do not, all their prices include materials. And if for no other reason, it just cleans up all your line items that are coming through on the credit card or the checkbook.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't have to keep track of nearly as many little runs to Home Depot and Floor and Decor and all that stuff. So getting things like that to where it's just kind of simplified, and your guys are bringing all their materials and their prices are completely inclusive. You can really clean it up, and then that way on the back end, you can much easier present that to whoever's going to be buying it. So let's talk a little bit about, now I know we've done a good job of talking about how to price, and I know in general you price a little bit low. You have that mentality of, let's price below the market, let's garner some interest, try to get multiple offers, and trust the process. And overall, it seems to really work for you. So outside of pricing, I know you advocate for staging, you advocate for professional pictures. Talk a little bit about kind of your process of, okay, now I'm done, I'm ready to go. We're about a week out. Are you mailing anything out? Are you knocking on doors? Are you calling other brokers? Like, how do you market this house that you've spent so much time on to try to share, like try to give yourself the best opportunity that day that you list it to get some offers?
For me, over the years, I've built obviously a big following on social media, Facebook for the most part. I've got some IG people following these days and things like that. But I use that platform quite a bit, right? So I'll do a live video. I'll share final photos. I'm sure I wear people out because sometimes they might see the project multiple times. Um, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just letting people know, one, I'm in the space. Hey, this is what I'm doing. Two, I'm looking for more projects, right? And so we're wrapping this one up. I need another one. Um, but here's what this is. Here's where it's at. And, it works. I mean, you get people like, Steven the other day that reached out on your project. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. They found
Mm-hmm.
another property in a completely different part of town. That happens, but it's just exposing it to that point. And I think,
Yeah.
again, just, we've talked before about research, and then all the way up until, you get ready to put the property on the market. Of, again, diving deep into looking at what's available on market, look at, any recent comps, any pending comps. You've done a good job of picking up the phone and calling some of these agents in the neighborhood and say, what's your activity like? Have you gotten any offers? What's going on? Can you give me high level information? Tell me, what the traffic's been like, and then you've taken it a step further and actually set appointments and gotten into some of these vacant homes that are on market to kind of compare and size up your competition. So I think I think all of those things are really helpful when you're trying to strategize the best way to put your product out there. And I will say, in the past, in years past, there was definitely several homes that I did not stage, and that was because it didn't need to do it to get it sold, right? It was an added thing, or maybe I tested the waters for a week or two to see if it went that long. And it was one of those, it's one of those line items on my rehab sheet is actually staging. So it's in there. So it's a cost, that you need to think about. But right now, because the market's kind of finicky and you're seeing all these price reductions and you're seeing, all of these, this different competition and things going on, I think just, again, eliminating all of these guessing games, and staging helps do that because it helps lay out furniture in a property to make it look, it gives you that virtual vision. And I'm not a big fan of the virtual renderings, the virtual staging, because all that does is kind of look at a picture and you're like, oh yeah, it looks great. But then when you show up, when you walk in the home, the average buyer makes a decision in 5 seconds within walking in a home if it's something they want to keep pursuing or not, right? So to me, that's the part that kind of falls short. If somebody sees it, it's like seeing any kind of advertising out there that looks really good, and then you see it in person, you're like, oh, like how many people have ordered things on Amazon that look really good, and like, oh, I expected this thing to be like life size, and then it shows up and it's like, this big, like, oh, right. I didn't read the dimensions. Like I thought this thing was going to be 10 inches tall by whatever, and it's like an inch tall, right? Like, oh no, Tabitha's done that several times, and we ordered something and the dimensions were off. So
yeah. Well, and what we were just talking about is we designed the house. It's not always super straightforward. Now, some rooms are, but some rooms it's not extremely straightforward. Okay, how would you put the couch here? Well, we designed this house with the intent to put the TV on this wall and the couch here. This is how we think it would be best. So we want to kind of, reduce questions for someone walking in. Like, I don't even like, how would our bed fit here? So when you do that for them, it's just one more thing. Like, yep, this bed's about the same size as ours, or actually this is a little smaller, a little bigger. Yep, our stuff will fit here. And then they can just move on. And the virtual staging, to me, it just looks creepy. I mean, however, it just never quite matches the style either. It's weird. I was looking at one this morning. It wasn't 100% rehabbed house. So it was a little bit dated, but they had like the cleanest, most modern, all white furniture in there. And then they had a picture without the staging and it just looked like this dingy old house.
Right.
So whoever opens up that front door, they're just going to be slapped upside the head with it. So yeah, we use in-person staging, and Rebecca Bowler, who we use, I think does a great job. She fills in a lot of the gaps. She does a lot of the knickknacks to just make it feel good, because you can tell even in an in-person staging, you can also tell the person who just did the best they could to throw as much as they could in the back of their truck, and they're trying to make that truckload of furniture
how many bad
fill up the house. It's like
how many bad stagings I've seen where it's definitely like somebody's, hand me down stuff that sits in their garage and they're like, hey, I'm going to stage it with this. And you're like, oh God, this is horrible. And somebody's like, well, yeah, I just wanted to put a couch in the living room, and it's like, you could tell this is like 1980s furniture that they had left over from somebody. And it's like, no, that's terrible. Don't do that.
Don't do that. I mean, honestly, we're talking about 3 or 4 bedrooms. 3 or 4 bedrooms, you're under $2,500. So on a project where you're spending,
not bedrooms,
like
but
me,
rooms.
150 rooms, right? If you're spending, $150,000 to rehab a house, and you've put all this effort into it. It's like, okay, just spend a little bit to make it look amazing. And I think it's worth all the money. So
Well, there's a
yeah,
reason
stage it.
builders
You're doing. Go ahead.
there's a reason builders do it with model homes, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's their that's their showpiece. They want to show it off, and
yeah,
they go the full, you know, they go the full, the full Monty, if you will, with all of the accent walls and paintings and everything,
yeah,
and the whole house is completely staged, right? But it's because it's giving you that experience of what it can be all the way through. So but just staging like you're doing, it's amazing to me how much like a little bit of greenery in a bathroom will change the perspective of the
mm,
bathroom, or a
mm-hmm,
piece of artwork hanging on a wall. Those
yeah,
things go, they go very far in just the perspective and the imagination of what the property can be. And it's amazing how fast it transforms. Even
mm-hmm,
Mapleton, which looks amazing and it's brand new and everything's done and everything is custom, but staging it just adds that extra layer that makes it livable and attachable, right?
yep,
And memorable, and people will actually go in there and sit down on the couch or sit down at the dining room table and talk about their offer, and so it gives
yep,
them a place to do that. So
mm-hmm,
anyways, we hope
yep,
that's gonna work out well for you here, as soon as
sure,
you get this thing on the market. So
yeah.
I'm excited to see it all staged and ready to go.
Oh man, I can't wait. And so to wrap this up, I hope we have given you a decent overview of how to flip a house. It's not rocket science. There's some simple steps that you can do. It's building a house, and like Tavis has said, you just have to know the concepts of how to build a house, and you start with the ground, and then you work your way up, and you try to not double back, and try to keep track of your expenses, and you always win on the buy. People say that, but that's the truth. You cannot just try to get into the business, go find something, and then try to rehab your way into value. Now you can add value with ADUs in the back, or trying to add a little bit of square footage. We'll talk about that at some point. But in general, if you're trying to squint and justify getting into a neighborhood or trying to do a flip, and then on the back end you're polishing up real nice and trying to convince people that for whatever reason you're worth $40,000-$50,000 more than what the market says you should, you're going to have a very difficult time with that. So if you can figure it out, be patient, buy it properly, and then go through these steps, you're going to be fine. And so, I know we're wrapping up Mapleton just like we're wrapping up this section here. So we'll keep you updated on how it's going over there. I know we're going to find a good buyer. I'm really excited. Randomly, I talked to the owner of the guy who bought the Polk property recently, and they're happy, and it just made it made me feel good to know that they've been in that house several months now, and they're still happy with it, and I don't have a lawsuit pending or anything like that. It's like you have these fears that there's like, oh gosh, what did I do? What did I forget? They fell through the living room floor on the third night. So you have these, you hope it goes well, but I know that we've done a great job on Mapleton, and it's gonna really turn out great for somebody. So, Tavis, as we wrap this one up, why don't you let people know what you're looking for? I know you've told people if they have anything, just what kind of stuff are you looking for? What parts of town are you looking for? And tell people how to get in touch with you.
Yeah. So look, if it's a real estate property, preferably an improved property, I will look at vacant lots. If it's just if it's in an area that's upcoming, that makes sense. I mean, I'll definitely take a peek at it. But for the most part, I'm looking for an improved property, single family. Obviously we'll look at multifamily and commercial too, if it makes sense. Um, Really, it's about the deal. I particularly want properties that are off market that need convenience. Right? There's some kind of reason that somebody's needing to sell this property and sell it fast, and therefore they're willing to sell it at the right price that it makes sense for me. They're still going to make some money on the deal. But I say off market because it gives me more options, with that property. If it's already exposed to, the general market, or if it's already listed for sale, that's going to limit some of the things that I can do with it, whether it's wholesaling it, whether it's keeping it, and flipping it, et cetera. So it just changes things up a little bit when it is already marketed. It doesn't mean that it completely sabotages it, but most of the time what I found is when it's already marketed, the prices are typically higher than where they need to be. So if you're going to send me a property that's on MLS, you need to have some kind of insight to it and go, hey, look, it's listed at 300,000, but I know the seller's in a position where they will accept, 250, right? Or 225, for instance. Okay, great. Then let's talk about it, but it needs to be something like that where there's enough meat on it. If it's a property that's been sitting and not selling, what makes you think that I'm going to be able to take that property down at your asking price if nobody else is buying it, right? So there needs to be some logic there. But at the end of the day, I can help you with that. If you call me and you've got a property or perspective, I can work off an address and usually get a rough idea of where I need to be and explain that to you. And then, visit the property and analyze it and put something together. So, I want to be your number one option out there. And I say option because you have multiple options and the sellers have multiple options. But if you're looking for, the as is sell, the no nonsense, close it in a couple weeks, and, convenience play, I'm your guy. So, that's what I'm looking for. Build these relationships. I've done a lot of business with people over the years, especially in the real estate professional space here in DFW. And you asked location. I mean, essentially DFW is where I want to be. We've recently closed some stuff in San Antonio. I've done some transactions in Houston before. So, look, reach out to me. I'll tell you if I could do it or not. As far as reaching out to me goes, reach out to me on Facebook. I'm Tavis Westbrook, like Travis with no R. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook. We are working on our website, so that will be coming soon. And nevertheless, look forward to working with you guys here in the future.
Yeah. And, just a quick little, nod to Tavis. I think at some point, tell me the number. You added it up. What's the number of commissions you've paid towards other agents in these types of transactions? Because you pay the other agents. So what is the number you're over at this point, you think?
So on average, it is, I think last year we paid out like $127,000 in commissions, or referral fees, if you will, to other professional agents. So on average, we average somewhere between, $75,000 to $130,000 a year, depending on volume, obviously. So that's
and you've been doing
part
this
of our
close
marketing
to 10
plan.
years or over 10 years. So you've been doing this for you've been doing this a long time. And that being the math, I think we came up with the fact that you've paid over $1 million in commissions since you've been started in this business. And so he doesn't mess around. He's not going to try to work you out of a deal if you're a professional and you've got a property that you just need help with. Tavis can help you figure it out. This isn't, hey, hand it over and he's going to make the money and you just have to look for something else. Like, he's going to pay you. So I just want to make sure you get a plug on that one. So as far as I'm going, I'm closing up Mapleton. I've got a listing over in Dallas as well, 10115 Cimarron Trail. Super excited about that. Really cool house that we're selling for a friend. And I think that'll move quickly. We're hoping that the under 30 days on market's going to hold true for them. So we're really trying to market that. If you have a house that you want to sell, or if you're out there looking and you need someone to show you around town, I would love to help you out. And then hopefully I'll be, like Tavis said, we're getting the website going. I'm hoping to wholesale something soon and get into another flip once we clean this one up. I take a little breath, maybe go to Mexico and just like kind of just relax for a second, just take a little break, just let everything settle, the dust settle, and then we'll be back. So, but keep paying attention to Real Estate Heavyweights University, Real Estate Heavyweights podcast. We'll come with you a little bit later this week. But thank you so much for joining us. Tell a friend, like, subscribe. We'll love you forever. Thank you so much.